Welcome back, Cal listeners. This is Methodical Millions, where you can better your future and better yourself. Cal, we've got another awesome guest with us today. So everyone listening, please welcome Fredrik van Huynh, all the way from Barcelona, Spain. Fredrik, how's it going?
I'm doing very good. Excited to be here on the show, John and Cal. Thank you very much for the invite.
Anytime, we're happy to have you. So, Fredrik, what gets you excited about life?
What gets me excited about life? The possibility to improve myself each day. I think
Yeah,
that's something that makes me very excited.
yeah. And why is that important? Why does someone have to improve what makes it possible?
Because I believe that I'm a big fan, and I've always been big into philosophy, always been a big thinker, even since I was young. But I think it was Socrates or Plato, one of those, who said that we're born with five limbs, like two arms and two legs and one head, and we're born with this body, and it would be a wasted life if we wouldn't maximize it. And there's a lot of people who talks about that, Bruce Lee as well. And I have this goal or this mindset that I really want to maximize the potential of my body and my mind and my life. And I know I will never reach my potential. I know I will never be perfect, but I love the chase of it. And I love how great it feels whenever I reach another milestone.
Yeah, it was Socrates, I think. He said the unexamined life is not worth living. And it's a pretty
Exactly. Yeah.
famous quote, I think. And yeah, I love philosophy too. It takes you on a different track of saying things are possible and you don't have to fit in a certain way or, being told what to do. So what's your background, Fredrik? Where did you grow up? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. I'm born and raised in Sweden. I don't look very Swedish. My parents are from Cambodia, so Asian looking. I grew up in Sweden. The Sweden that I grew up north of Europe, we didn't have a lot of immigrants back then. It's not like in Canada or United States or the UK for that matter. Um, so I stood out. I think there was we were two Asian kids in my school. The other one was adopted. Just to give you a picture of how my childhood was. And I was the first one in my family that went to university. So my parents, they worked in a metal factory in Sweden. They flew from Cambodia to Sweden. They were refugees. So no education. So that was the only job that they could have. So getting a formal education for myself and really inspiring me to study and really work hard since I was young was something that my mother and my parents, well, both my parents really instilled in me. So a goal early on when I was young was always like to learn languages. Um, so I speak seven languages today. So when I was young, just to give you an example, my mother, there was two Chinese, no, there was one Chinese teacher in the little village that I was. And she refused to teach me because I was not Chinese. But we found out that there was a retired Chinese teacher. She was like over 70, and my mother like basically like cold walked to her home and like, okay, like, would you teach my son? And she said okay, she would do it. So I would take Chinese classes after school 1 hour, because my mother, she believed that it would be beneficial in the future. And I mean, China's booming now, and I had the opportunity to live and work in China for many years and run my company from there. So absolutely, it's been amazing for me. But fast forward to high school and university, I went to a business school. Through my studies, I had the opportunity to study abroad. So I studied in China, Shanghai, and in Osaka in Japan. And after graduation, upon reading The 4 Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, I co-founded a company called Absolute Internship, which today is one of the biggest internship programs for high school and university students. That's the short version, guys.
That is absolutely amazing. I always admire people who speak languages because I find that, you know, I'm not well traveled, but you know, everyone thinks they're the center of the universe when that's all you know. And, you integrate in society, like you said, high school or, your place. And people always make judgments about how you look, how you interact, and where you are. But if you want to learn humility in life, go try it and go to a foreign country and try and get around and realize how you're brought to your knees with, not even knowing how to speak and not knowing the customs and, how to do things. Like, so I always really, really think it's cool. Myself, I'm half Polish, half Slovenian, born in Canada. And I speak very broken Polish. My grandma taught me when I was a kid. She would live here 6 months at a time. And, I owe it to her because I never went to school to learn how to read and write, but I can get by. And, sometimes it comes in handy. So what other languages do you speak, Fredrik? I'm very curious.
So just to comment on that, it's already impressive, John, because Polish is one of the most difficult languages in the world, literally. So well done on that. Yeah, so I speak English, Swedish, Cambodian, Mandarin, Cantonese, French, and Spanish.
Yeah. And you know what? So French is actually a national language in Canada. And of course, 500 kilometers down the road, you go to Quebec, and which I love Montreal. I love, being in that area. And I find it a little bit more difficult. I learned the odd Spanish too, I was in Mexico. So I find that personally, I find Spanish more easier to grasp than French. I don't know if you find that yourself.
Um, so I learned French before Spanish, and it was challenging to learn it. But I agree that I mean, it was not easy to learn it, but it was easier, so to speak. And I mean, at least in Spain, where I learned Spanish, people are very encouraging, guys. They're like, okay, you're doing really good. You're doing really good. And that sounds great, I remember when I went to France the first time and I tried to speak, for example, I was ordering a baguette and then I was like, un baguette. And they're like, no, it's une baguette. So, if you don't have tough skin, like, and, you're not humble, like it can take you down.
Yeah, totally. And what language do you think in?
I think in English now. John and Cal. However, whenever I'm with my family, I would think in Cambodian or in Swedish. So I think it depends on the where I am, because the way I like to embrace it is like whenever I'm in France, for example, I try to think a little bit in French because it helps me embrace my French persona, so to speak. Same in Chinese, or whenever I'm in China.
That's awesome.
I gotta give it to you. It's absolutely brilliant that seven languages. I speak two. I should know at least four, to be honest, because I did learn Italian for a year, and by the end of it, I was able to gently communicate in Italian, write in Italian, but um, because I never practiced it with anyone or at all, I actually forgot pretty much all of it right now. You're talking 15 years ago, maybe. So, yeah, so that's the problem. So the fact that you can speak seven languages, let alone that they aren't easy languages as well, Mandarin, Cantonese, I can't speak them, but I know from people who study languages, they tell me it's definitely, again, one of the most difficult out there for sure. So maybe you can add it to that, but absolutely impressive. And also just want to really hammer in the fact that, I'm sure you made yourself and your parents proud by really going through that kind of, the childhood of proving yourself, learning these languages, going to university, studying abroad, and now really maximizing and creating something for yourself. I'm proud of you, and I just got to know you, right? So it's like, this is fantastic. So please share more.
Thank you, Cal. I'm very humbled to hear that, and it warms my heart. So thank you for that compliment. I think you're having a very good point. Like one can study a language, like in your case, Italian, but if you fail to practice it, you will like forget it slowly. For a while, I used to speak Japanese and Thai because I studied in Japan, and in Japan, for those who haven't been, people don't speak English. So if you don't speak any Japanese at all, it's nearly impossible to get around. So I took Japanese courses every day. But just a year or two after, I forgot, like, I cannot even count to 10 now in Japanese. It's that bad. So I completely hear you. I agree with you. And yeah, you need to be practicing it, you know.
Yeah. So, what has your life been like in terms of traveling? Does it help you discover things? And, you're in Spain now. Why Spain? What drew you there?
You're asking two good questions. I'm a firm believer that travel makes you richer. So it's something that my mother instilled in me when I was young. We didn't have a lot of money. And like I said earlier, my parents, they worked in a metal factory. But my mother, she was having people over on Saturdays, I remember, to cut people's hair. So like we had Vietnamese grandmas and like Chinese people coming, like all types of immigrants coming to cut their hair because my mother was cutting it and it was cheaper than going to a salon. So she was doing everything she could to save money. And I remember during weekdays, once I've done my homework and studying and I've been doing my training and doing my sports, we would always watch some travel documentaries or anything about travel. And she would always dream with me. She was like, you know what, it would be amazing to take the train from here to China, or it would be amazing to go to Australia. She was very curious about cultures, and she taught me that when you're open-minded and when you sort of like open your chest up, to like just embrace new cultures, you learn a lot, you become wiser. And in the end of the day, that's one of your biggest goals in life. It should be one of your biggest goals, to become a wise person, because with wisdom you can do anything in life. You can achieve all your dreams if you have wisdom and you have life nuggets or life advice that you have acquired, so to speak. So I think that's the answer of your first question. The second question about why I chose Spain is because when I started Absolute Internship, we're based in China. And this was in 2009. This was like just in the verge when China had started to boom. And were not that many Westerners there, so to speak. So having an office and running a business was very low cost. It was quite affordable to operate your business from there. And after living there for 5 years in total, I lived in London as well for a year. We had an office there for a while. Not only from a financial perspective, but it was very difficult to engage and motivate our team members. First of all, because things started to get very expensive. Shanghai, where we're based, it's sort of like the New York of the East. So imagine like New York, but 10x stress, 10x the amount of people pushing and like hustling and all of that. And Shanghai is a city that has like 25 million people. So it's really hard to like disconnect. It's not like you can like, okay, let's go to the forest and nature for the weekend. It's really, really hard because the distances are so big. So it was really, really difficult to motivate our team and keep a healthy team, mentally, so to speak. But also for my own personal health, started to get really into health. Because I've always been big into sports. I used to be a professional ping pong player in Sweden, and I don't play now, but I got into martial arts when I was in China, Thai boxing, and started to eat healthy. Well, I've always eaten healthy, but what I want to get to is like one day I was like telling my wife, I was like, look at this apple, like the apples in Sweden, like they're much smaller than this. And look at this onion, like this can't be real, like look at the GMO here. And I'm putting this into my body. And I was like, okay, we need to find a way to get out of here, And I think at that stage of my entrepreneurial life and that stage of the company, I was still in this mindset. I don't know if you guys can relate, that you need to have a nice office. You need to have an impressive office address. You need to have a suit going to work because that's the way we've been taught and drilled, since we were young. But one day we had one of our biggest university partners coming to visit us. And at this time, we've been getting to know each other because we've been doing business with each other for a few years, and we became close friends. And she told us that, hey, Fredrik, to be honest, like, I don't think you guys need an office here. This is just a lot of waste of space, waste of money. You could be anywhere in the world. And that, when she said that to us, it really hit me in the heart, because it reminded me why I started Absolute Internship, why I started my company. It was because I wanted to build a company where you can work from anywhere in the world, and I had forgotten those roots. And I was like telling my wife, you know what? I miss home. Like, I haven't seen my family for a while now. And I remember when we lived in Shanghai, I think I flew back to Sweden every second year or so. And that was not because, like, okay, some years it was because of financial reasons, but most of the time it was just very inconvenient. So we were looking at Sweden, we're looking back at London, and I've been to Barcelona in the past before. And I was like, you know what? Let's go to Barcelona and see how it's like. Because first we went to London for a week and we're looking for apartments. And I was like, I don't want to spend 1.5 hours one way commuting each morning. Because I made a math, guys. I was like, I would basically waste one day a week for the rest of my life if we were to live in London. Because it would be 3 hours per day, right? If you times 5, that's 15. That's like a day, basically, right? And you don't have internet in the tube in London, so you basically do nothing, you know. I didn't want to do that, so I was like, okay, how can I like really live life, pursue my passions, do things that I love, you know, at the same time take care of my mind, my body, my soul, and my team, you know, like build a team that are mentally healthy and can have a high life quality. So left London after a week and we went to Barcelona and we did a site visit and met lawyers and accountants and all of that. And I was like, okay, I'm in love with this place. It's much smaller than Shanghai. It's walkable. You can walk anywhere. Basically, I can bike to the beach and it's 25 minutes. And I can take the train, which is 20 minutes. And I can take a hike basically in the mountains. And I loved it. It's so international here. Really, really high quality of life. And I think most importantly, like team members that are really thriving here because they can eat really healthy food, locally produced. They can disconnect in the weekend and they can fly anywhere. Like it's really well connected as well, Barcelona. So now I've been in 5 years, guys, and I really love it.
That's awesome. I think, yeah, I need to travel more for sure. So one day I'm gonna come out and visit. We'll bring Cal
More
too.
than welcome. More than welcome to
I
pass
know.
by. We can have a
Thanks,
meal
man.
together.
Please, I would love it. So, how did Absolute Internship start? What was the idea there, and what was like day one like, and how did it turn from nothing into something?
So the way it started, guys, was at this time I was living in Thailand, and I'm a big soccer fan. I forgot to say that I'm a big Juventus fan. Since I was 8 years old, I used to play soccer as well, football, when I was young. And when I was living in Thailand, I was going to these Adidas and Nike factories, and I was like buying these shirts on wholesale and then selling them on eBay. I was doing that. I was making, I think, $400-500 per month. And this was when I graduated, so it was not like a high-paying job. And this was the time when I found the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. For those who haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And it really inspired me. It was like opening up like a new religion for me. Like it really spoke to me, you know. So I was like, I need to do something else because this is not like barely paying the bills, you know. And I came to think about something that I did in the past. So when I lived in China, my roommate, he was an intern, and I was like, what's an intern and what's an internship? And he was explaining to me that it's like, well, it's sort of like a job, but you're not paid like a job, like as a full-time job, but looks really good on your CV and they teach you the ropes. I'm like, okay, that sounds amazing. and I met other interns during my time in Shanghai. And there was another one who were interning for Heineken, another one for the Beijing Olympics. Fast forward the semester after, when I lived in Osaka, I had 3 American classmates that were looking for summer internships. And I was like, oh, I know some people in Shanghai. I'm going to hook you guys up. And this was pre-booking.com, pre-Airbnb.com. So it was not like, okay, I'm going to book something in Shanghai. I'm going to figure something out. No, you had to literally go in the streets, like to these real estate agencies and look for apartments, you know. So I helped these guys out with summer internships. And a few months later, I checked in on them. I'm like, okay, how did it go? You must have loved it, right? And they're like, well, no. I mean, the internships were great. Thank you, Fredrik. But we didn't have such a good time. Like, we didn't, like, it was so hard to find accommodation. We didn't make a lot of friends. It was hard to make friends. And that made me think, okay, I had such a good time in Shanghai and in Japan. And the reason why was because of the people, like the community that I had. So one day, after watching Sopranos, I was a big Sopranos fan. I had like the DVD collection, you know. I was like, okay, let's look up summer internships, because I mean, there must be something out there. Again, I'd read the 4-Hour Work Week, so I was like I was super inspired. And there was this company that popped up. They were selling internship programs in New York City for $12,000, and they had 400 students each year. So I did the math. I was like, wow, this is like $1 million business. And you don't need help getting an internship in New York. People speak English there. You need like help to get an internship in China. So I was telling my partner in crime, I was like, I need to do this business, you know? So it was no fancy business plan. It was basically a 2 pages Word document about how we're going to conquer the world, you know. And me and my partner, we had 2,000 euros in savings. We had one computer like to share. Like, I didn't have my own computer. We just had one to share. And that's how we started.
See, I love that because, you know, a lot of people take the whole business idea and think it's a great big mountain, and they don't realize that it's step by step. And I think entrepreneurs fall in love with the idea, and that's what gets them going forward. They just keep going, and you know, the curiosity and the learning and the trying. Because if you think of like the biggest companies in the world who have all the money, all the marketing, all the press, and you know, are already established, little companies shouldn't exist, right? They have all these resources to make things happen. And, you know, somehow little companies start and grow and grow. And then, you know, it's almost like a mission. So I loved how you started the podcast with you're talking about Socrates, because, you know, the journey of entrepreneurship really is like a discovery of yourself. And, you know, you talked about potential. You talked about,
100%.
yeah, like
100%. I
you
agree with you. I agree with
exactly.
you, John.
Yeah, so you talked about like, you know, it's a discovery process. Like every time you build yourself up, you learn about yourself and you say, I can do this and I can grow, and it really forms who you are. So like in a, you know, the modern world of what I want people to think about is like, you know, in this point in time, you have inflation, you have conflicts around the world, you have, you know, hardship. And, you know, this is that like mythical trope that never goes away. Hardship will not go away. Life gets hard. It's how you react and respond and, you know, think outside the box and learn and grow. And, you know, if you want to take the reins and control your life, you have to discover, you have to learn and try. And then, you know, you're the expert, not me, but over time, like who you become, if you define it, you'll be proud of who you are and you'll grow. And then all of a sudden, you know, you start to build this legacy of purpose.
I agree. I agree with you, because, you know, there's so many, like, what I hate right now with the culture out there is that so many young people that want to be entrepreneurs because it's cool today. Like, anyone can be an entrepreneur. You can just change your Instagram bio to an entrepreneur and suddenly you're an entrepreneur. But when I started as an entrepreneur, it wasn't cool. It wasn't as cool as it is now. You know, it wasn't pop culture as it is right now. I mean, entrepreneurs are like rock stars today. But I think what a lot of people miss is that, okay, a lot of people, they want to build a multi-million-dollar business, you know. But in order to build a multi-million-dollar business, you need to have that maturity. You need to have that mindset. You need to become that person who owns and runs a multi-million dollar business. And that's something that you cannot like become one day after another. That's why I was so against raising money. You know, in the beginning, like we were getting cold emails from private equity firms and VC firms. And I met with them, I met with them. They were like, okay, Fredrik, we want to raise, we think we can like take Absolute to this. And we're going to give you this amount of millions for X amount of equity. And I was thinking to myself, like, I don't even know how to conceptualize $5 million or 5 million euros. Like, I wouldn't even know how to spend it. Like, I don't even know how it looks like, I'm not mature enough to take that amount of money and run this company. So the way I see it is the way I approach sports. When I was playing table tennis, ping pong, my mentor and my coach, he said that you want to be a champion, but you don't have a champion mindset. I was very young. I was 13, 14. Like, you're not willing to come and train on Saturday with a smile at 8 a.m. You're not willing to come and bike when it's raining to come and train. When you're approaching training, life, everything that you do, this mentor, I happened to live sometimes during school break, I would come and live in his home. And he was like, look the way I'm folding my clothes. Look at the way I wash my clothes. Look the way I am doing my dishes. I'm doing it like a champion. Being a champion, he said, in ping pong, is not only being a champion like in the stadium or when you're training, it's being a champion the way you bike, the way you put your clothes on, the way you fold your clothes. And that's the way I embrace entrepreneurship, and if you don't become this person, let's say your goal is to run a $10 million business, if you're not embracing being that person, you will never be able to do it when it actually happens.
So this is a point of perhaps controversy, but I want to say that this is probably the first time I say it out loud. I agree with you 100% that the idea of entrepreneurship has become sort of a fad, sort of a, like I said, pop culture, in the sense that anyone and everyone can be an entrepreneur. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship, but a lot of people are claiming they're entrepreneurs, not necessarily being entrepreneurs. So in my mindset, this is just my personal thinking. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I wouldn't call myself an entrepreneur until I make something that actually has value and create something that actually now has gained traction. So I can have a million great ideas. I can put them to action. If they all fail, I personally wouldn't consider myself an entrepreneur. Not because I failed, but because I still haven't created something that would be worthy of calling an entrepreneur. That would mean that I've contributed something that society either wants or needs, and we're able to capitalize on and use, and my idea would flourish into that thing. So, for example, you having the company right now, you've created something that, whether it was a new idea or it wasn't a new idea, that's besides the point. You created something, you catered to a need in a marketplace that really flourished into something that even gained traction and created value. And that's absolutely awakening for a lot, because I can sell t-shirts and maybe just post on my Instagram page that I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not saying anything wrong with that, but like you said, it does have that stigma to it. I do get that vibe when I come across some people. I'm not saying everyone, obviously, but that I do. I just want to say that's the first time I say it out loud, even though I've been thinking about it a lot. And when I come across that, I do mention that. And I love also how your coach mentions that. I believe basically comes with the mentality of when he says, and correct me if I'm wrong, how the way I fold my clothes, the way I cycle for half an hour to practice at 8 a.m. in the morning. And it's because you're absolutely focused and motivated in everything you do. You're thinking of trying to do what to do. So I went through something similar. There's a phase of my life I really wanted to become a professional racing driver, and I dedicated everything I had. I focused with my fitness, me going to work, the fact that, absolutely everything I did, even what had nothing to do with motorsport or racing. I wanted to have purpose, that I knew that I did the right thing that would get me to where I wanted to get to. Unfortunately, that dream didn't, flourish, but no regrets. I did. At least I tried, and that's, to me, what's important.
I think you make a good point, Cal. As long as you've given it all and you have really tried all the avenues in life, I think you can go to bed sleeping well. I mean, it's not an excuse, but I think also in racing, the financing, it's so important. If you not have the right backing, it's really difficult to succeed. I mean, you see already in Formula One, there are some drivers that shouldn't be there. Like, they just have the right backing, so to speak. I mean, I'm sure there are better, more talented drivers in Formula 2 or Formula 3 that could do much better.
Agree with you completely.
Speaking of that, like going from wanting to be an entrepreneur to the idea and just doing it, what was your first customer like? How did you and your co-partner kind of find the first person and, or placement, so to speak?
So the first one, I think, it was a Swiss student, and it's actually a very funny story, guys. So remember, like, let's go back, right? But only $2,000. So $1,000 went to creating a website. The other 1,000 went to buy a new laptop, because it's all about being productive. We can't be two people working on one laptop, right? So that meant we couldn't incorporate the company, which meant that we couldn't receive money on, like, in a company bank account. So when our first customer from Switzerland was gonna wire the money, and he saw like a private person's bank account, and we got an email from him, he was like, okay, but who is this? Like, why am I wiring this money to this person? And I mean, I'm laughing at it now, but we got cold feet back then. Like, we couldn't say that we weren't incorporated. But anyway, like, he had a great time. He interned for a hotel. I believe it was the Marriott, for 6 months. And the way we found the placements were basically LinkedIn and networking events. So I basically looked up networking events on Meetup. When I was living in Shanghai, I just printed business cards. Printing business cards is really cheap, like $3 for 200 cards. I would go to this networking events, and I would just meet people, and that's how I met one of the people who worked at the Marriott.
That's a beautiful story, because it really confirms that, you just have to go and do it. Because imagine if you made another excuse. Let's talk about excuses. So, you like, not even, excuses happen, but you're almost like, the worst thing to do is create your own obstacles. So, you have a path to success, or your first customer, and then you tell your client, well, you know what, we're not incorporated, I'm not ready. And then they go somewhere else and you lose your first customer. So don't be your worst enemy, right? Just go for it. And, you know, how does the model work? Do you charge, a student? Do you just charge like Marriott and then find the student and collect the money, and the student's happy to have an internship? Or, are you like a temp agency where you kind of pay them a little bit? And how involved are you in terms of, you talked about accommodation. Are you that like one-stop shop where they have an itinerary for 6 months, go to these bars, go to these pubs, go to this, landmark? And how involved are you?
We are very involved. We're very involved. So we take care of everything, basically. So we have two types of programs. We have the online version, where we set you up with an internship, a mentor, and you get connected to other remote interns around the world. But then we have the on-site one, where you travel to another location, like Portugal, Spain, Sweden, or China, for example, where we then help you set you up with visa, accommodation, cultural activities every weekend, networking events. and then you live together with 50 or 100 other students from all around the world. So, and when it comes to the fees, we only charge the students or the universities. In many cases, the universities fund the experiences. We don't charge the companies. And basically, the student pays upfront for the experience.
Got it. So a student will almost buy like a internship travel package for the experience to go for 6 months to go somewhere. Right on.
That's
And
correct. Yeah. I mean, we changed the model since then. Now you can go for 1, 2, or 3 months. But back then we had 6 months packages.
yeah, that's really, really cool. And what does the next step look like? So you find the student to apply, they do it, they give you money, and then find another customer. What's that like 2, 3, 5, 10 people later?
Um, Once we got like 5 students or 10 students, that's when we were like, okay, now we can incorporate, we can be legit now. So we incorporated the company, and it's expensive, to incorporate a company. Like, people, they don't think about that. So that's what we did, and then we started to think of ways we could market, you know so SEO was something I learned myself. So we ranked really well, but the first few thousand was basically, okay, how can we pump in more money into the company and try to get more traffic and more students?
Yeah, so I guess what you're saying is, you know, you go from one student to try and grow and then use everything you can on a budget to try and grow to 5, 10 people. And, did you have like a feedback process? How did you know which placements were good? Did you try a bunch of different ones? And do you have a core type of placements you use now?
That's right. We had feedback was very important. So something that was really important for me from day one was, all right, we don't have millions of dollars, backing us. We need to be personable. And I've always been a personable person, so I wanted to run the company that way. So we're very personal in the beginning. I believe that we still are, like, really checking in on the students, checking in with the companies to see, okay, what are the good internship placement? What are like the factors that makes a good internship experience for both the student and the company? And then we basically replicated that. Um, but I want to add that, John, you were saying that, okay, in the beginning, it's all about investing in the company and trying to replicate the good internship experiences to more students. I think something that we did really well, that I think a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs are not ready to do, is to live below our means. So, just to give you an example, I decided to move into my mother-in-law's apartment in south of France and to live there for a year, because I knew I would like not pay rent for a year, and she would feed me for a year, basically. So, because we couldn't take out a salary, so we had to basically cut as much cost as we could, and like free Wi-Fi as well. And I think a lot of people, they're not willing to do that. They're not willing to live below their means because of ego, or because of they want to be comfortable, or they want to appear cool, and appear successful before they're willing to put in the sweat equity. So
Just want to say, I think it's a blessing if you are able to, in these days, in the times we live in right now, is that if you're able to live below your means and be satisfied with it, it's an absolute blessing. And once upon a time, even though I never really splurged, and I was never really materialistic in that sense, but I want to have a big, huge house and a lot of cars, and I wanted to race, and I wanted to travel around the world and spend a lot of money. But when I got to a point in my life where I realized that none of that matters, and I can live below my means, there's a moment of serenity there. And the bonus is the fact that you can actually have that extra money to build something for yourself.
it is true. It is true. I think some of the most happiest people that I know, they live a very, very simple life, they don't need like 3 cars or 1 car for that matter. I mean, I guess it depends where you live. I know in many remote places in Canada or the US, you need a car to get around, but you don't need a Ferrari, you don't need a BMW, you know.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. And, I think when we talk about sacrifice, a lot of people, the funny part about, you talk about the facade of how people like to present themselves and, you know, put an image of what they're doing without actually doing it. I think you're missing the point of learning and trying. And if you don't even sacrifice your image, you can't start at the beginning. You can't start at the ground floor to build. And I always say, like, oh, I'll sweep floors to get where I want to go, because you have to be willing to go to the building blocks. And I think if you have this pretense of like, I'm too good for something, then you'll never think bigger. You'll never, it's kind of like you won't do the work, right?
It's true. It limits your growth, I think, your mind. And I think it limits your self discovery as well.
So, a quick question, Fredrik. So, how big is your team now?
We have 15 people working now with us.
Wonderful. So, from 2 people, a laptop, and $2,000, and a Word document to a team of 15 people, just amazing. Good for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Cal.
I was just gonna ask, so any future plans ahead that you have for Absolute Internship?
I think I mean, obviously, we want to keep expanding to other locations. I'm super excited about taking Absolute Internship to Africa, Middle East, and later on in North America. But high school internships and the high school program is something that we launched this year. I'm very, very passionate about inspiring people, guys. It's something that, back on my campus when I was a university student, I was the one welcoming exchange students, international students. I was the one like giving talks to them, showing them around, showing them where the best parties were, where you're doing the groceries, and telling them about the Swedish culture and so on. So I've always been like very curious about people, wanting to inspire them, help them, have an impact in their life. And I feel very humbled and blessed that I can do that, as a living now through my own company. And it's been very, very successful doing that for university students. But in the world we're living in right now, and the way mental health is going among the younger crowds, I feel it's an important cause for us to try to inspire and help the younger generation. So I'm very, very pumped to work towards inspiring high school students.
Right on. And what's the best way to inspire the younger generation? And do you find it's like post online, or do you get to I know with, a lot of lockdowns in the world, it's hard, but do you think, visiting in person or working in the community is the best way?
You mean like for myself or for anyone?
I guess for anyone, like, how do you inspire? What's the best way to connect with people? I really believe in mentors, and you had talked about like, especially you're like, a studier of language. You love, athleticism and being the best at things. I find that, you can bang your head against a wall and not get better, or you can find mentors who you click with, and then they'll help you grow. So I guess my question is, where you are today, you've achieved so much. How do you be a better mentor for others and things like that?
So just to answer that last question, how I can become a better mentor, I think it's by being relatable. I think it's about being open-minded. I train jiu-jitsu, martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I've been doing that for 2.5 years. And in martial arts, you learn very quickly that, you need to leave the ego outside, because, you might be submitting everyone today, but tomorrow there might be this like skinny 15-year-old who's like, who's going to submit you because he's extremely talented. But I think what martial arts have taught me is that when new guys or new girls are coming and their training is their first time, it's extremely intimidating. Brazilian jiu-jitsu has a, what do you call that, a cancellation rate like of over 90%. So over 90% that show up will never continue, and they will never reach their black belt. Think about that. So I feel like it's really important when they are coming that I'm not gonna like strangle them. I'm there to like be their big brother or their big uncle and showing them the rope, so to speak. And what I love with martial arts and jujitsu especially is that religion doesn't matter, your skin color doesn't matter, your gender doesn't matter, and above all, like whatever you have on your Instagram profile doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a celebrity, rich, poor person on the mat. You're just as anyone else. And through that, I've been able to exercise my my mentorship skills, but also through Absolute Internship. I think one way that anyone can exercise their mentorship skills is not only through sports, but also through volunteering. Um, Something that I did in the past is that I would go to middle schools and high schools, and I would offer my help to help children who had problems with their homework. And that's a really cool way to have an impact on somebody, because you never know, you have this 14-year-old girl or guy who grows up with a one parent home, who doesn't want to go home, and that's why he or she is struggling. And being able to like have an impact in that person's life and really change the direction for that person, is something that I think anyone who's listening, they have that power. It's just about finding the opportunity to do so.
Very powerful stuff. And, what does opportunity mean to you? Because, a lot of people talk about missing an opportunity. I could have done this, or, I'm too old or not the right, financial position. So, how do you think about opportunity in your life, and what do you look for, when you realize that something might be there?
Um, it's a great question, because my wife and my business partner, she says that I can smell when an opportunity is there, and I always go for it. I think it comes from my mother. She always said that you have to, when you open a door, many other doors will open, but you will never find out unless you open the door. So, I mean, I think I can give you a few examples. Jiu-jitsu. 2 years ago, there was this mega celebrity in the jiu-jitsu world, one of the best fighters in the world. Found him on Instagram, and he was coming to Barcelona. It was a Saturday morning. I was supposed to, and I found out like a day before, and we're supposed to go away with my wife. And I was like, this is an opportunity that will never come again. I will never be able to meet this person or anyone like this. So I have to go. There's like, I need to cancel that weekend, and I'm going to the seminar to meet this world champion, because I don't know what I'm gonna be learning. So I met him, and I did the seminar, and I got his mobile number, and now we're in touch. And we're not friends, but I know him, so to speak, which feels great. Um, I think that's a very good example. I think another example is many years ago, I got in touch with a lady who ran a private equity fund in Hong Kong. She was actually from Canada, and she said, "Okay, whenever you come in Hong Kong, let's have some tea or coffee." So a few months later, I flew down from Shanghai to Hong Kong. It's a 2-hour flight. It's very convenient. And I sent her an email, let's meet. And we met for tea and coffee. And she picked a place. And she said, okay, I think you should meet this guy. Let me introduce you. Like he went to Boston University. Like he runs a hedge fund. I think he would be amazing, like for Absolute Internship. And I'm sure you guys can help each other. The thing was, we didn't have a lot of time. It was super stressful when we're on a business trip. But I told my business partner, like, we never know what this is gonna lead to. I've never met a managing director of a hedge fund. So let's make this happen no matter what. And I think that's what it is. Like sometimes you cannot hesitate, especially when you don't have anything, when you don't have like a personal network, when you don't have wealthy friends, when you don't have parents who know people. You need to basically go on any ball that comes to you, because you never know what it's going to lead to. And I think that's an attitude that I've had because of the adversity that I had when I grew up, that, you know what, I'll take whatever you throw at me, I'll take it, because I don't know what it's going to lead to. And it's been working out quite well for me. And I think that's something that the listeners out there, if there's one thing that can take away from today, that's it. You see this Facebook event, whatever that is happening in town with some business people, go there, because you never know what's going to happen. You have this volunteering opportunity at the local school. You never know what that's going to lead to, you never know the parents who's going to show up. You don't ever know the children who you're going to meet, how they're going to impact you. So I think that's a big, big takeaway.
Those are some beautiful words right there. And, I think just listening for the past hour, you really show us how to think and act like a champion. I think this mindset is just so powerful. And, I love doing these because it gets me so energized just to go, tackle the world. And really, really thank you for spending, the last hour with us. So as we wrap up here, where can people find you? Where's the best place to keep in touch? And if people want to, either join your team or maybe try an internship, where can they find you?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys. I just want to add on that yes, I've been developing a champion mindset, and I think that's something that, my early mentors, they told me in ping pong, but also in jiu-jitsu, that it's not only about being a champion and winning medals. That's not enough to be a champion. A champion is somebody, it's just a mindset. Like, anyone can be a champion, but you don't have to win like gold medals to be a champion. You can be a champion by being like among the best grass clipper person in your neighborhood. Like, it's just about the mindset. About finding me online, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Fredrik van Huynh, or on Instagram or TikTok. I'm very active there. If you would like to check out my TEDx talk, it's called The Future is Remote. Just check it out on YouTube. I run also a podcast called Fika with Rice, where I interview successful authors, philosophers, business people, athletes, UFC fighters, where I try to draw out their life lessons and gold nuggets, trying to acquire more wisdom. So feel free to check it out. It's called Fika with Rice. If you're interested in getting an internship for yourself or for your son, daughter, cousin, feel free to check us out at absoluteinternship.com.
That's amazing, Fredrik. We'll make sure we link everything in the show notes. So send us all your links and we'll drop them down below. Thank you so much once again. And we'll definitely check up and follow along, and we'd love to have you back on the show.
It would be a pleasure, an honor. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
So with that said, let's wrap up today's episode. Thank you for listening to another episode of Methodical Millions, where you can better your future and better yourself.
Thanks, everyone.